A reading from Genesis chapter 9, verses 8 through 17. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, As for me, I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and every animal of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. I establish my covenant with you that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you, for all future generations. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. I've always found it kind of funny that we paint murals of the story of Noah's Ark in children's nurseries. I will admit that the pretty pairs of giraffes and zebras and lions and the nice picture of Noah's family smiling on a boat with a rainbow overhead does make a pretty mural. It's a story of God's love for animals, trusting God through the storms of life, and remembering God's promise of love every time we see a rainbow after a storm. I will also admit that in my many years working with children, I have helped many church trustees paint those very murals on our church nursery walls, and I have taught that Sunday school song to the catchy tune about God telling Noah to build him an arky arky, where we rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. But I still don't think that the entire story of Noah is meant for all audiences, particularly children. You know, a second interpretation of this story is most definitely not G-rated and wouldn't make a great nursery decoration. It's the story about God's anger, about human rebellion and sin. It's the story about God's desire to flood the earth and to start over except for a remnant of faithful humanity. It's a story of death and destruction and unrepentant human bodies floating in the floodwaters of God's wrath. I have a feeling that this story of Noah's Ark, with all of its death and destruction and bodies, would be much too graphic for a church nursery theme. But I'm not sure that either of those interpretations truly capture the entire story of God's mercy in Genesis. You see, we have to look to the finale in chapter 9 to get the rest of the story. When we look at both sides of the narrative, we can begin to understand the mercy that God is extending to humanity here. You see, the Hebrew word used in chapter 9, verse 13 isn't rainbow, it's just bow, as in bow and arrow. God putting a rainbow in the sky is God hanging up God's bow of destruction. Retiring your bow meant retiring from battle. God's bow is no longer pointing towards the earth. It's done. God promises that whatever else is to come in the future, the path of destruction by a flood, is off the table. God hangs up the bow and promises a new covenant to Noah and his family, and by extension to all of humanity and all of creation to come. God makes a new covenant that promises patience and peace when dealing with creation. This is a story of redemption. It's God choosing to put aside the option of destruction and instead seeking restored relationship with us, God's beloved children. This is a story of God's power, justice, mercy, kindness, and faithfulness. God recognizes that humans have been, are, and will continue to be sinful. And yet, God chooses to be patient and to extend mercy instead of punishment. This particular realization hit me harder this Lenten season. When deciding what to give up for Lent this year, I chose to give up complaining, particularly about someone in my life that requires a lot of extra grace right now. I decided to give up being frustrated by this person and instead give grace and patience and mercy, even though they try my patience on the daily. We are only a few days into Lent, and I am already struggling to keep my Lenten fast from complaining. It's harder than I thought it would be. I cannot imagine how difficult it must be for God, who is all-knowing and all-powerful, to put up with my shortcomings, to put up with all of humanity's shortcomings. How much mercy must be extended, knowing that we have broken our covenant with God and that we will continue to do so. Knowing that God will continue to fulfill that covenant of right relationship, of righteousness, even though we are going to continue to fall short. What an incredible, merciful, wonderful God we serve. In light of this mercy, perhaps we should all be reminded and continually sing, "Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory."